What's poppin'? It's Mello. Back at you with another video. Today, what we are talking about, making beats like it's your job. I've touched on this briefly in a lot of my videos in the past, even some recent videos, but I've never really went fully in depth into this. And the reason that I haven't is because for most people, it's not going to be like it's your job. You're not going to be making beats like it's your job. But there are some people who actually do this full time. There are a lot of people who are 2 years to 5 years into their type beat journey and stuff like that. And there are also people with heavy workloads. They could benefit from this video. And if you get to this point in your future, you could benefit from it as well. But let me get to these points and paint a picture to illustrate the topic for you a little bit. So if you watch a lot of my videos, you will see, especially the recent ones, you will see that I say you make beats from one or two places. I need to figure out some names and trademark these two things, but you make them from a conscious place or unconscious place, basically. You make it from a place where you're making deliberate decisions, you're making calculated decisions and things of that nature, or you make it from a place of you're just going off of habits and you're just trying new things. You're not really putting too much thought into it. You're just making quick decisions, etc. You're just flowing. You're in a flow state, etc., etc. So those are the two ways of making beats, right? In my opinion, when you are making beats as a job, when you are making them as your career, when you have to have a decent amount of output or a high amount of output, one of the biggest enemies you'll have is beat block. The thing about this is, if this is your career, you don't want to have to rely on inspiration to keep you going. Inspiration is good, but what if you hit a block where you're uninspired for a whole week? What if you hit a block where you're uninspired for a whole month? No work gets done. You struggle. You're going to be overwhelmed with different emotions on why you can't make the beats and things like that. So I'm going to give you some of the mentality and some of the theory as far as what I think when it comes to this. I think that when you were in this position, you should work more based on formulas and technical skills, especially if you got to pump out 6 beats a day, 10 beats a day, 12 beats a day. Whatever the case, if you got to sit down and you got to pump out a lot of beats, you should be getting to the bottom of how you can do that with the formula as easy as possible and as consistent as possible. So the one thing I'm going to say is, when you look at an actual job that you have to go to, right? I'll keep it so real with y'all. Most people hate their jobs, man. Most people on the planet do not like their jobs. But a lot of people are in positions to where they have to pay rent. A lot of people are in positions to where they need to feed their family. So they go to jobs that they don't like, that in some cases they absolutely hate and loathe. And they put in the work to earn that check. And I also got to keep it real with you to another extent. In a lot of cases, what you are dealing with at those jobs are people who make the job worse. They make it so bad. It's not the actual task that you are doing. It's the people like your supervisor, maybe some of the customers or clients that really make it tough because they are difficult to deal with. So one of the things that a lot of people do is they go in and they leave their emotions in the parking lot. They leave their emotions in the car and they go in and they work like a robot. They have a mentality that nothing anybody says can get to me. We're going to get through the day. I'm not going to overreact, et cetera, right? Now, while that may sound miserable, that is the reality for a lot of Americans. I said Americans. That's a reality for a lot of people around the world. Now, let's go back to making beats and producing full time, like it's your job and things of that nature. You may have to deal with some producers, or you might have to deal with some rappers, A&Rs and things of that nature. You're not going to be dealing with them at the same capacity as somebody at a job. And this is the other thing. more than likely you got into beats because you like making beats. And this is a dream career, et cetera, et cetera. So there's really, in most cases, no way that this could be as bad as working a regular job that you hate. It just can't be. But you could get stuck creatively, and you could get flustered, and you could get beat blocking, et cetera, et cetera. So I illustrated that whole point to you to say that, in my opinion, so that you can continue to get the work done in a quality way at a high rate and not be emotionally fucked up, you have to get to a point where you might make beats on the side and do all your creative stuff. You might make beat tapes. You might say, you know what, I'm going to go and just switch genres. I'm going to get into house. I'm going to get into funk. I'm going to get into disco. I'm going to get into rock. I'm going to start playing real. You could do all that creative stuff on the side when you are not doing shit during work hours. You can do all that inspiring, explorative shit in your spare time to keep the love for making beats, to keep it fun and all that stuff. But when it is time to work, if you have the creativity, if you have the inspiration, and you could use it towards the type of beats you need to make to get the results you need to make, you could do that. But you have to be capable, in my opinion, to make sure the work gets done. You have to be capable of going into that robot mode, into being emotionally detached, into relying on skills more than instinct, into relying on formulas more than freestyling. There's a book that I was recommended 15-ish years ago that I just bought, but I was aware of a concept from it the whole time. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. There's a summary of it on YouTube. I have not read the book yet completely. I definitely am going to read it. I got it on Audible, but I'm going to play this clip for you. And it's a part of one of the book summary videos.
Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine tells new Navy SEAL recruits that they're all walking around with two invisible wolves, a fear wolf and a courage wolf. The fear wolf is resistance. It feeds on your fear of it. We have a choice every day. We can either avoid our calling, give in to resistance's demands, and feed the fear wolf, or face resistance and feed our courage wolf. Author Stephen Pressfield feeds his courage wolf by sitting down to write at his desk at precisely 10:30 a.m. every day, regardless of how he feels. He starts writing and doesn't stop until he's exhausted, which is typically 3 to 4 hours. He doesn't care how many pages he's produced or if his writing's any good. All that matters, he says, is I put in my time and hit it with all I've got. All that counts is that for this day, for this session, I have overcome resistance. If we commit to sitting down with resistance for a set amount of time every day, something magical happens. It's as though our efforts are being rewarded by a divine power. It's as though we've been given an angel for a day.
So with that being said, if you understand the concept there, the concept is you have a set amount of time that you are going to sit down and you are going to create every day, regardless what comes out. What comes out could be garbage. What comes out could be great. But you are going to hit that quota. You are going to take that time. You are going to create. You're going to do the things that you know, and you are going to get some output. That's what you are going to do. And in a lot of cases, you'll need the tools to make beats fast, like really fast. And guess what? I'm dropping a kit that can help you do that. And I've been previewing this kit for quite a while, almost a year. It is called Torque. It's a production suite. It includes an assortment of products. I'm talking sample pack, analog lab bank, multiple one-shot kits, and it's going to be dropping very soon this month, so I need you to be on the lookout. Now, you may be wondering, okay, I hear you, Mello, I hear you, but what does that actually look like? What does that process actually look like? I'm going to show you and I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to take you back to a very controversial producer grind interview from 2018, about 7 years ago, if I'm correct. And the producer, Cassius J, is going to give some golden secrets that people still won't tell you this type of stuff to this day.
Beats passing through your hands. How many beats a day you make? 10. Because it's a whole nother way to make beats that I ain't gonna never tell nobody, but yeah, 10.
10, that's it.
I will share it though. I just say this. If you make a beat and the tempo is 145 and you do a hi-hat pattern, of course, these beats that you probably don't got mixed or you don't collab with somebody. If the pattern, and this how it's going to, man. I hate to say this because I know a lot of people finna do it. But let's say if I did a beat with Nonstop and I say, hey, Nonstop, give me the sessions to them beats so I can add to it. Once you give me your set, your sounds, I got them now. So if that beat was made in 150 to about 148, I can adjust it where it's not going to make a difference. So the way a lot of people is making the beats, this is what I'm telling you why I'm glad I went through that with him, because I learned something. Watching him do it.
Yeah.
Watching Metro do it. Watching a lot of people do it. I ain't going to call a lot of people names, but if I take a hi-hat that's 150, and you know a lot of these niggas got these hi-hats that's going all that shit. A lot of people can't do that with their softwares. And then it's just a certain feeling. You can't even mimic that shit. So if I take that hi-hat, take that snare, all that shit that was under 150 and put it in there, all right, now the drum's halfway done. All I got to do is put an 808 on it and a melody. Now, with Splice or whatever it's called, freeroyalties.com,
yeah,
whatever, freesampleroyalties.com, you go get one melody, put that bitch on there, put it through gross beat, halftime, whatever, put reverb on it. You got a whole beat. All you gotta do is do an 808 and add 2-3 sounds, and there go your beat.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm making 10 beats a day.
Now, let me tell you, because some of y'all probably weren't making beats at that time and probably weren't tapped in to producer grind or whatever the case may be, but that was a extremely controversial take back then. And probably even now, you like, oh, man, he's a thief. Oh, man, stealing people beats. Oh, my God. Oh, no. Now, listen. Now, I'm not going to advocate for taking somebody's loop or whatever and then, like, as far as, like, their, they hi-hat loop and reusing it 18 different times. I'm not going to advocate for that. But when I seen that interview, it actually inspired me. It inspired my workflow because I was like, wait a minute. So he's getting 10 beats done a day. I'm really putting my foot into these beats and I'm getting about 3. I'll be lucky if I get 5 out in a day. And even then I'm working. I'll just keep it a bean with you. I was working. So I like the concept. The concept was, hey, you know, you got the whole take and everything, but the base concept to me was, I collect tools from the beats that are made, right? And I use them to make other beats. So what I did, I began to make my own midis from my own beats. That's what I did. Most other people's kits, I didn't want to use anything from those because this is just me keeping it real. There was a possibility that I could get a placement, and I have, off of, you know, some type beats and stuff like that. And I just didn't want to have to risk going through the hassle of getting something cleared and having to talk to somebody else to get my own beat cleared. And let me say this as well, because this is how much I am against like the stealing and stuff like that. I really don't like sampling. I really like making my own compositions, and that's how come you see me so heavy into music theory and stuff like that. So sampling can make really good beats, and it's made some of my best beats. But when it comes to me creating, I don't like to sample for a few reasons. But one of them is because it's just you're taking somebody else's composition and manipulating it. So I try to avoid that personally. But if I were to make type beats today and I was really trying to move and grow, I'm not going to lie, I'll probably use a lot of those people who, you know, master clearance guaranteed, and I'd be using royalty-free loops, because at the end of the day, it's about output. It's about quality, as much quality as you can get, and output. That takes a load off of your shoulders using other people's loops. But let's get back to what I did. What I did, and this is at a point where in 2018, I'm making a lot of beats for my website. I'm trying to pump out beats every week, maybe even a couple times a week, and just throw out batches. I never made it to 5 days a week output, but this is what I ended up doing. When we talk about the melodies, and this is some good game right here. So open your ears up. When it came to the melodies, I was making NBA Youngboy and Lil Durk type beats, ironically before they was beefing. I'm pretty sure that was before they was beefing. Isn't that crazy? But what I would do, I would either find a chord progression at work, or I would play around with the keyboard when I'm creating, when I'm in a creative mood, and make a chord progression that works. When I have a good chord progression, I save the MIDI of that chord progression. So that's step one. Then, and this is genius shit. I hope you're listening. Like, what I would do is shift the notes around, make a melody out of that chord progression. Once I make that melody, I save that joint and group it with the same, as far as the file name, to where it shows up right next to it. I group it with that same chord progression. And I make 3, 4, 5 melodies with a chord progression before I reuse it and transpose it, et cetera, et cetera. So that gave me an easy way to stock up on melodies and stuff like that. And once I hit a certain point, I didn't need to rely on inspiration or playing around with the keyboard to get a chord progression. I could just use one of the chord progressions I got and transform it into a melody. If I didn't want to transform it into a melody, I already had melodies stocked up under multiple chord progressions that already work. Only thing I did with the drums is save the hi-hat patterns, never the kicks, never the 808 patterns and stuff like that. And I got a huge MIDI stash that people have seen in my old videos that's not on the website or anything. They've reached out to me personally and asked to buy it. I've sold it to them. I may release it one day, but I got a bunch of MIDI kits on the site. Also got a MIDI kit in the kit that I'm dropping, so be on the lookout for that. But this is another thing that I have done recent, because I'm just fascinated with making beats and learning and just getting the results and stuff like that, and trying to scientifically make it to where I could teach it to y'all or give it to y'all. Like, I have a book of formulas and stuff like that. I have a book of formulas, and this is not something I anticipate selling or anything like that, but I put these notes together, and they're different formula. And even then, sometimes I don't even use some of them. Some of them I use them. I used one recently, and I went back to it after probably like a year or two, however long it's been since I wrote it, and it still works. And it pretty much gives me the options, the variables of things I can do to get the result that I need and still have a unique quality beat. Now, in some cases, drum loops actually can work really good. I stocked, the Combustion Volume 3 with drum loops. I'm pretty sure. Maybe even the Combustion Volume 2. I can't remember. Volume 4 and Volume 1 doesn't have drum loops. But drum loops and drum midis can make things easier and make the process go a lot smoother as well. So when you look at that, what is that? Remember I said earlier, you got to be a robot. That's automating the process. I did this before I turned this channel into a tutorial channel, before I started getting, endorsements to cover products that I'm into that do this type of thing and generate different MIDIs and different XYZ. I did this before it was popular to use Arcade, and before Splice came out with, the stuff they came out with, before co-producer from Output. I was doing this type of process before that. Now, Splice was out at the time, but we got so many different options now that make the process so much easier as far as getting quality. And it's like, if you are in a place to where you have to have the output, you need to do this. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. I said this earlier, but I got to double down on it. You need to separate business, right, and personal or pleasure or whatever you want to call it. You need to separate the love that you have for making beats, the love that you have for being creative, the inspiration that drives you. You got to separate all that from being productive, from showing up and getting the work done. And this is the thing. This is if you are a quantity-based individual. This is for if you have a quota, that if you have a high demand for the amount of beats that you got to put out, then yeah, you might want to move like that. Especially if your name carries weight to where people are going to suck your dick regardless what you throw them. there are a lot of super producers who have given people lackluster beats, and people were just happy to have the beats from these people. Now, there was a situation where Timberland himself, and this is not, the beats weren't bad, but he said when he was working with Jay-Z on, I think, Magna Carta or The Blueprint 3, one of those albums, that he wasn't giving Jay-Z his best beats because he was still making music for him and his artists. And I'll give Jay-Z some cool shit. I'm not giving him my best shit. And if you just think about that just for a quick second and think, well, why could he possibly have that mentality? In my opinion, it's because I'm Timberland. We all know how arrogant Timberland is. Like, I'm Timberland. Like, and even then, at a certain point, it was justified because it's like he's getting hundreds of thousands, if not 100,000, for beats, right? For beats. He's getting paid that much. He's a super hit maker, and his name is a household name. So you get a Timberland beat, you got one step, like you got one step in the top 10. Like, you just got to deliver as an artist and you good. Now take this, you got him and Jay-Z. It's going to perform well regardless. Timberland and Jay-Z, it's going to perform well regardless. Even if you don't like the song, there are people who are going to dick eat just because it's Timberland and Jay-Z. Just keeping it real. But going back to the main point that I was trying to make in this last segment, you don't want to have to rely on creativity, on inspiration, and et cetera, et cetera. If you were somebody who has to keep going, who has to have this output. Now, if you don't, you have a luxury, right? You have a luxury to where you can take that time off. You can, wait until the inspiration strikes you again, whenever that may be, because you are not under that pressure. You don't have the level of demand to where you got to pump out so many beats all the time. And you could have a lapse in your productivity. So it really depends on your situation. If you want to take this and move like this, et cetera, I think it can be beneficial. But again, if you're doing something like, again, the online stuff, as far as doing tight beats, it's extremely competitive, especially if you are on YouTube. You got to constantly upload. You got to have something every day because your competition is going to have something up every day. And people are going to be looking for the beats. Attention is fleeting on YouTube. So the thing that you can't have is this whole business relying on how you feel. The business cannot rely on you being inspired, you feeling like making beats. It can't rely on that. And the reason it can't rely on that is because you won't get the work done. Now, this hasn't happened to me, but there are some people who get depressed for a lot of different reasons. Because they feel their beats are not up to par with some of the other people that they hear. They get depressed because they think their career can't go the way that it should go. They get depressed because it's hard for them to achieve the sound that they want to achieve, or they just lack inspiration. And ultimately, it can come down to some of these people wanting to quit. Now, if you were one of those people, I made a video about this recently. The video is on the screen. Click it and check it out. That video is for all producers from beginning to all the way advanced. You could definitely get some value out of it. If you have ever contemplated quitting making beats. And that video is more about love and creativity. So definitely click that and check it out. I'll catch y'all, man.